because it's so good. We're going to talk for hours before we even start.
Yeah, we're live.
And we're live. Deadlifts today. I'm so fucking excited about deadlifts.
The double-edged sword. Because they're good for you, and they could be oh so bad for you. And a lot of people are so scared to do them, and then a lot of people are so happy to do them.
That was why I had to research the deadlift more. I remember going into workouts in my garage, and the only workouts I would be afraid of are the ones that had semi-heavy deadlifts in them. So I thought that was the shittiest feeling. I don't want to go into a workout scared. And if you start CrossFitting or you start deadlifting for reps, your back is probably tweaked at a certain point.
Yeah.
And then you're gun shy. And then every workout after that where there's a heavy deadlift, you're going into it with hope. Like, I hope I don't blow my back out. You know? Or back in the day when we used to deadlift, we still joke around about this. When we do a heavy deadlift workout and then the next day our lower backs are like sore, lit up, we didn't know any better and we're like high-fiving, yeah man, what a great low back workout.
Yep.
I didn't know that it's not a lower back workout.
That's why I think guys love, like my guys that just hit body parts at the gym, they just love to go like, I'll deadlift for that, like that erector pump. And then I'm like, what? My low back's strong though, man. And I'm like, no, that's not the goal of the deadlift at all. We're trying to get functionally strong, and if you're gonna functionally lift, you know, something heavy with your low back erectors, you're really gonna F yourself in the long run. So
yeah, you should not feel the deadlift in the lower back.
It's funny because in high school athletics, I never remember deadlifting. We would do in like football practice like some cleans and no jerks, just cleans. And then when me and my buddies would go to the gym, we would like Google like how to deadlift and just try to pull up a bar at FixFitness or something. And then we would, low backs would get tweaked all the time and we'd be like, we don't know what we're doing. I'll just stay away from that one because everyone knows it's bad to you know.
Well, there's a big discussion, right? Like when we first started CrossFitting and then they get all their info from their docs or chiros saying deadlift's bad for you.
Yeah, stop it.
And there's probably still a lot of them that say deadlift's bad for you. Yeah. And to some degree I don't disagree with them. If you're deadlifting wrong, it is bad for you.
Sure.
You know?
You're at high risk. A lot of injuries that I'll see, SI sprain, sciatica, and they know it's from the deadlift, and it's like, well, maybe, yeah, probably, but it's the repetition of it over time done incorrectly, and no one ever stopped to go over the technique of it, and they just think, like, my back's flat, I'm good.
Even though I was learning all the technique from CrossFit, all the starting strength, Mark Ribeteau, you know, I researched the hell out of the deadlift because going back to it again, I don't like going into a movement where I'm hoping I don't get hurt. So I studied everything I could about the deadlift, and I was still doing it wrong.
Yeah. Because
it's all technique based. Everything, if you look on the deadlift techniques on the YouTubes, they tell you where your hips should go, where your feet should go, what hand placement, if you do switch grip and all that. But no one's talking about the mechanics. They'll just say build stronger lats.
Yeah, it's like why, right? Like you should ask like why you want to deadlift. Like guys just think it's like part of leg day or back day, and it's like, do you even know why you're doing it or what muscles you should be filling it in?
I think the fitness industry, we follow what's popular, and the first wave of it was CrossFit, right? Like everyone does CrossFit, and then there's deadlifts in CrossFit. So then you start doing more deadlifts, but it's still spread out because you have all these other movements you're trying to master, pull-ups and squats, and then now I think powerlifting is like the next kind of wave of what's popular because there's all these famous powerlifters now.
Yeah.
You know, so I think people are seeing that it's cool to post big deadlifts. That wasn't around. I don't remember that. Like you don't. But nowadays, everyone wants to have that big deadlift Instagram post or something.
Yeah, it's another PR, and it feels good. And maybe you do get like a glute pump or like a lat pump from it, and you're actually feeling a little bit stronger from it. So then you can get pretty addicted to the deadlift. Deadlifting's fun. I remember being scared to do it all the time, but yeah, once we started going over no switch grip, and we'll get into all that later at your gym, I started realizing like this is really fun.
It's my favorite lift. It still is, and I think it's still the ultimate test of strength, right? It's just you pick it up. It's the least technical, I guess, compared to like if you had to compare someone's like clean and jerk or snatch, that takes time to develop. But people can understand that like, hey, there's that object or bar.
Pull it,
lift it up.
Yeah.
It's like, can you? It's like the sword and the stone type shit, right? It's like
what is that Icelandic strongman's quote? He says like there's no need to be alive if you can't do deadlift.
Yeah, he has it tatted. The mountain has it tatted on his calf or something.
It is true. It's like it should be. Yeah, it's the definition of strength. But our definition of strengths are going to vary for the athlete or for the patient or for anybody, right? So we can get into that, like the application of the deadlift, sport versus fitness. If you're going to be in a sport of deadlifting, it's very technique based, or if you're going to be in a athletic sport like football or baseball, should you be deadlifting?
I don't think you should. If you're deadlifting for a sport, I don't think there's a need for it. You're never in that position for a deadlift.
Well, you mean like when I was talking about the deadlifting, actual like in a powerlifting competition was something.
Oh yeah, like
some people actually.
For like deadlift, like the style of deadlift, you mean? Like for the sport of powerlifting?
No, just deadlifting in general.
What do you mean?
Like deadlifting for a sport. Like if you're a baseball player, football player, and you're like, I want to get stronger, should I deadlift?
Yeah. So like I was saying, if you're training for a sport, baseball, football, whatever sport, you don't need a deadlift.
Right.
Because you're not in the position of a good 1 rep max deadlift for that sport. Like that position you're in for a deadlift won't come back up in your baseball sport.
True.
So why the hell do you have to train that? Deadlift is its own sport, in my opinion, sport of powerlifting.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
So therefore, you have to train the deadlift like it's your sport. You have to learn it from ground up, find your style, work on the mechanics, the technique, right? But that's a sport on its own.
Right.
So you don't need to implement, like, if you're a football player, you're not doing basketball drills.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what people are doing because they think it's a way to build raw strength.
Exactly.
But there's so many more ways to train. It's like the golfer I'm working with, right? He hurt his back doing a deadlift, part of his regimen, and then he was afraid that he's going to hurt his back again. I was like, you never have to deadlift. There's many different ways to, like, push a sled, pull a sled. So I think people just using the deadlift to get stronger for a sport, I don't think that's the right way to approach it. There's too much risk for that athlete. That's what I'm trying to get at.
So a lot of coaches or programs that I've seen from, in my practice, there was like a kid that was I think he was water polo, and he was at some kind of like group gym, and they were like, we want to do deadlifts because, makes you stronger, but he was in a hex bar, safer, and he strained his upper trap on his last rep.
How's it safer?
How do you hurt your shoulder on a hex bar? Dead. And it's like, because mechanics, he had zero intent behind what he was actually trying to do. He knew he just had to pick it up, right? And it's
multiple reps, following a program.
And of course, it was the last rep of the night, and it happened. And it's like...
See, that's what I'm saying. He got hurt doing a strength and conditioning drill for a sport.
Right.
That should never happen.
So those coaches could argue, okay, well, he just shouldn't do that one. Maybe he should just do dumbbell. But, like, it's like, why wouldn't you stop and, like, break down the mechanics of why he should be doing the deadlift in the first place?
That's why I don't think deadlifts has any place for strength, like, for an athlete in a sport, because unless someone's willing to teach the deadlift, right, go over all of it, it'll take too long. That's only one of the movements that they have to go through out of their whole strength and conditioning program.
Right.
So why don't you do something that's a little less risk of injury, right? Mm-hmm. And same thing with the golfer. He had a stress fracture in his L2 from a sumo deadlift, and then all they chalked it up was, you just went too heavy that day.
Yeah. See,
he was out for golfing. Yeah, you blame the deadlift. He's out for golf for 3 months.
Take it out. Maybe I shouldn't sumo then. Maybe I should, like, I don't know. But what do you think about for fitness?
It's the same thing where, like for CrossFit, that's where most people use deadlifts, right? Because in part of workouts and stuff, I think it's a different style of. What I've learned is there's 2 different styles of deadlift. There's like the 1 rep max powerlifting deadlift. That's a whole different technique.
Yep.
And then there's deadlifts for high reps for fitness. Mm-hmm. And it's like you have to view those 2 different deadlifts as 2 different movements. And I think people are mixing and matching. Yeah. Right?
I think we've talked a lot of times about, like, if we're linking reps, that's a CrossFit term, right? Like, we're going to bounce these bumper plates for reps.
Yeah, you're not supposed to, but everyone does because they use the momentum. It's like you're not supposed to bounce a bar off your chest for benching.
Right.
But when anyone ever does it for reps, get the fuck out of here. No one's pausing like a powerlifting, like the sport, right? The sport of powerlifting, you pause at your chest for like a second, or really until the ref gives you an up signal.
Yeah.
We're not doing that for deadlifts in the classes. People are going to use that momentum and just
bounce them
and do more of like a stiff-legged deadlift type of deadlift.
So that's more hamstring.
Yep.
That's more hinging kind of deadlift. But you get to a higher weight.
And you try to the same shit, and that's where that term stripper butt comes into play. Mm-hmm. So people do that, like, they're used to doing deadlifts at a certain weight, doing more of that butt's a little higher, shoulders over the bar, right? And that's the position you are always in for deadlifts, and then you go for like a 1 rep max.
Yep.
And then you try to find tension and your butt shoots up because you only have hamstrings developed.
Right.
And then all of the weight goes to your lower back, and it becomes like a low back bend.
Yeah.
And that's where you see all these bad deadlifts on like all those gym fails.
Yeah.
Those are the best.
Always on there.
Deadlift's probably the most gym failed movement, I think.
Yeah.
Because people deadlift it and then they still get rewarded for lifting the weight. I think that's a huge issue. People need to talk about that. There should be something where like you lifted the weight but you look like shit doing it.
Yeah, it's just so interesting because it depends. Like in a CrossFit gym, it depends on what's prescribed, right? So like if we have a WOD today that's got multiple reps of deads at 275, you're gonna link them, bounce them. But what if it was like 315 and that's like way over your, that's closer to towards your 90%, and it's just 3 reps every 90 minutes or every 90 seconds. So then you should technically probably drop the bar each rep, reset, and go for your 90% or 90%, right?
Yeah.
And reset and get as much tension in your quads, but people don't distinguish those two. They just kind of same technique through all of it.
Yeah, it's a very old school way of thinking. It's like you're able to link the 275 for, let's say, 3.
Yeah.
Then what's next? Cool. You add more weight. Yep. Hopefully you can start linking it.
But you're not going to get stronger that way, though, is what we're trying to get at. That eventually you're going to hit this plateau of like, why can't I get my 90% from 275 to 315? It's because you're only training linking. You got to stop and actually train the technique of deadlifts like you do with Olympic training and actually work on your form and actually getting the max power out of your lift.
Yeah, it's hard because people just deadlift, and just because you can lift it and it goes up, even though you're using all the wrong muscles, right, and you don't feel pain yet, let's say, because let's say you're deadlifting and you have like all erectors, your lower back muscles, and you're using a lot of hamstring. So people feel like that's a successful day, and you're going to keep building off of that. See, that's the issue, right? It's like they're going to keep lifting and numbers keep going up until that one day where their back goes out. That's a really big issue, is that like if you don't understand the mechanics of that lift, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like the first time people usually get injured in a deadlift is like a low back tweak.
Yeah.
It's not like a muscle strain because you've been using like whatever you've been using.
Actual joint injury.
Yeah, joint injury, and then you tweak your back on a certain rep, and then it's like you're out.
It's very scary. It's very scary. It can lock you up so bad that you can't stand up straight, and that's when people get worried. Mm-hmm. Or they get out of bed in the morning and they're like, "Oh crap, I can't fully stand up. I can't take a good step without my leg catching." We see that. We see sciatica down into the butt or down into the foot even with numbness, tingling. So if you get neurological complaints from it, people get really worried. But I guess where we open up with is that we have people training for a sport doing deadlifts, then we have an actual powerlifters that we work with, and then we have CrossFitters, and then we have your everyday just
or even bodybuilders, right?
Yeah,
people are using it to build certain muscles, mm-hmm. and they're all different goals or different intent. You have to understand what you're training for.
Right. So let's go over now the actual different kinds of deadlifts that you can do. There's a sumo, there's a conventional, there's a switch grip, all of it. I guess we could start with...
I would say if you're not a power lifter, then you're using it for fitness, right? That's like the main demographic. I think a lot of people aren't training the deadlift to compete in powerlifting. That's a smaller percentage of people. So I think the style of deadlift that people should do is, I wouldn't even, I don't want to differentiate saying like sumo deadlift or trap bar deadlift or conventional deadlift, like one's better than the other.
Right.
It's understanding which muscles you're trying to train for those movements, right?
Yeah.
And then staying in your mobility range. I think that's way more important. So when you're talking about linking it or whatnot, you should be only going as far down as you can or pulling from maybe an elevated surface, because that's as far as you can go down with your muscle staying on.
So you like to conventional deadlift?
Personally, yes, I'm better at that.
How did you come about that?
I don't think sumo was a big, sumo wasn't that popular, I think, in the CrossFit world.
Right.
Because then CrossFit has a big thing with like competition and rules. Like if you're doing sumo, shortens range of motion, you're a cheater.
Yeah.
That sort of deal.
Powerlifting world, I think they argue that a little bit too.
Yeah, they talk about that.
Yeah, shorter range of motion on a sumo.
And the reason if you break it down mechanically, people are just designed to do different types of deadlifts.
Right.
So I was better at pulling conventional because I think I had stronger hamstrings and my glutes weren't as strong.
Right.
Looking back now, right, like why did it feel better for me to pull conventional?
Right, so someone that does sumo has pretty strong quads.
Yep. Outside glutes, I would say.
Outside glute, which is like glute med, and less lat involvement for sure.
Because you're not as bent over, right? Because of conventional, you'll see your back's at like a 45 or whatever, and in the sumo, you're trying to stay as upright as you can with your torso.
Yeah.
So it becomes like a violent like knee extension, or straighten out your legs with your quads. Then your hips come through at the end.
Yeah.
It's like two different. People view those as like they're interchangeable, but in terms of mechanics, I think they're using different parts.
Totally.
You're using a lot more erectors, lower back, hamstring, and glute max, I think, for conventional. And one thing that people aren't talking about that we've changed a lot in our gym is your VMOs. That first pull from the ground, when you lift the deadlift, if you're set up the right way, there's a lot of inside quad activation, your VMOs, and no one's training that. We're talking about it.
Yeah, we got that from Eddie Hall, right? Talking about how he pushes off the floor.
Yeah, so he's the only one that deadlifted 500 kgs, and when, again, doing more research, seeing how he coaches it, still with just technique cues, he thinks of the deadlift as like a leg press, a leg press machine, and he's trying to push the earth away from him.
And that's a lot of VMO, and the VMOs that, like you said, the inside of your knee, that should be firing. A lot of people don't check that when they're getting down and getting an attention before a pull.
If you look at the best deadlifters, which are the strongman, in terms of the heaviest, right?
Yeah.
We're not going Wilks or pound for pound type stuff, but you'll see that their hips are lower than most CrossFitters that deadlift. There's a lot more bending of the knee, which means in the bottom they're using a lot more VMOs or inside quads. So that technique is definitely like a lot of quad as to start the lift, and then their hips come through at the end. Whereas CrossFitters, they usually just go and use more hamstring, like a kettlebell swing almost,
Yeah.
where they're just hinging at the hip, because that's for speed.
Right.
It becomes a one joint movement predominantly, so push your hips back and then bar touches the ground of the bumpers and you fire your hips through. So it looks like it's almost like a good morning, Slight knee bend.
Yeah. My biggest one that I've looked into a lot is breathing. So for a sumo guy that's standing pretty upright, you say them take a huge breath and just get that, they just reach down, grab it, and pull real quick and hold their breath like the whole time.
Okay.
Because there's just less, they don't need to require as much external oblique involvement there, because they're just, like you said, using that outside glute to pull it. And if you look too, like when you're in a sumo stance, your hands are on the inside, so your lats are already lengthened.
Yeah.
So there's none of that pulling back into the bar thing, and you don't have to worry so much about that hinge pattern happening, so you don't need your external obliques on as much. I mean, they're still there for sure, and they still need to be firing.
That's the danger, because what you're talking about is just minimizing injury rate, and they do sumo because it's safer, because you're more upright, so there's less like arching into the lower back to tighten up, right? And then you get to use more quads, and I think that's why a lot of athletes use the hex bar to deadlift, because it becomes more like a squat.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that it's safer, because the more weight you add, at a certain point, that's where like the first injuries you get from deadlift, I would say, and anyone that's listening that's got a back tweak, it's usually joint related, because you'll get upright into that hex bar or a sumo deadlift, and you can only arch into your lower back at a certain weight for so long, and there's that one rep, or that when you're super fatigued, or that one weight all of a sudden all of that weight just dumps into that one spot. So it doesn't make it safer. It just means you're like building yourself up to an injury.
Yeah, that's why I still like conventional the most. I think it provides the most power because you have to use your lats. We talk about rowing that bar into your legs. As soon as you do that, you're flexing your lats into that bar. That's going to stabilize your lower back. Then you get more room now for your arms and for your obliques to take a big breath and fire out into those obliques before you hinge and pull up that bar, which I like a lot. And that'll take it out of your erectors. But I know
that's true,
hamstrings and erectors are...
In a conventional, like you're saying, your upper back should be rounded, and that's a big no-no for, I guess, CrossFitters or whatever when we first learned it.
Yeah.
In the early stages, I was starting to break down the mechanics with Kelly Starrett's teachings and stuff because he's like a PT background, and that's all the knowledge we had with movement. No one else was breaking down mechanics. So we would go deep into that external rotation through the shoulder, I guess, to try to get more lat involvement. External rotation in the hips to get more glute involvement. But both of those are wrong because when you actually pull, you're actually pushing that bar into your body, and your upper back should be rounded because there's no way that you can arch in that old school cue of like keep your back tight, which everyone still does. They get on the bottom of their deadlift, they push back and arch their back to build tension in their lats. But since you're overextended and your core muscles aren't working, then right when you lift it, that's the way they go from like a flat back, which everyone wants, right when the weight goes up, all of that 100 to 500 pounds goes right into their lower back. And it just doesn't make sense. And all the real powerlifters, you look at all the powerlifters out there, the top ones, their shoulders are rounded forward and down. Their shoulders are actually going internal. And what that means is not only are they using their lat, they're pushing, they're like sweeping that bar into their legs. So if you push that bar into your legs, you're using more than just lats, as in you're not just like puffing out your chest. You push back in that bar into your body, you're using your pecs, your teres, your obliques, and lat at the same time, and that's how you actually get that bar to stay close to you. You know, so it's crazy that people still think like training the lats, that has to be explained better.
Good shout out my buddy Muscle Doc real quick because he's a power lifter, and I tagged you in his post about lat action versus function. We're going to go over that another day for sure, but this is a good example of lat activation versus lat function, right? Like the lat is activating to stabilize your lower back. It's not acting to actually pull the bar like you're doing a lat pull down. Because that's when the lat's actually flexing when you're doing a lat pull down or pull up. Right? You're flexing the lat into its movement and function versus if you just stabilize your lat in terms of what you're talking about.
Pushing back,
you're creating a push to do the pull, which is pretty interesting. And I think for people that are unfamiliar with going, like if you've deadlifted before and felt it in your back and you're listening to this going like, how can I feel this kind of stuff? The number one drill I would do is the one that you brought back from the Strong Fit seminar, where we would just pull the bar into our shins, get down into tension, flex our obliques to come up, and pecs basically, right? I think we would just squeeze our pecs to push the bar in, fire the obliques to pull up the bar, and then drop it. And then I've had people do that and have like their lower back actually feel better afterwards. Like if they go into a deadlift and they're kind of like, it's kind of stiff today, I'm a little worried if I should dead, do you think I should? And I'm like, do this drill where you push out your obliques, pull up that bar, and then drop it. And just because they got their obliques to start firing and hinging at the same time and their lat starts waking up, they've loosened their lower back, which is how it's mind-boggling to them. Like, wait, what the hell? Like, my back's stiff and now deadlifts made it feel better. It's very possible at a lighter weight for sure, but it's like that's just to kind of wake it up and start training those muscles to activate, but that doesn't necessarily mean like that's how you're going to get a max rep out of yourself.
Well, it's building the structure first before you adding a ton of weight. And that's the big issue, is 100%. That deadlift is one of those cool movements where you can lift a lot of weight safely as in you're not going to feel it for a while. People can get away with deadlifting. We have a member, King Harry as we call him, but he's one of those people that, like, I'm not a naturally strong dude, because like when I first started deadlifting, I worked my way up to like old videos in the garage. Like it took me a long time to get to like 275. right? So I'm not just naturally strong, but I've met dudes like Harry. He comes in maybe 2 to 3 times a week.
Yep.
He's an accountant, right? So he's not doing some powerlifting
Wraps
program.
his big paws around the bar and just
pulls.
Up.
And
Yep.
he lifted 515. That's a lot for a CrossFitter.
Mm-hmm.
And with limited training. So he's a naturally strong dude. So he can get away with pulling, but...
Just picture Harry the CrossFitter. Just look at him. Yeah, he totally does CrossFit.
He's a big guy.
He's a huge guy.
He's a huge guy, but
he's so nimble though.
But the thing is, that's the problem. Is he started doing a lot of this FixFit stuff because he was just tired of hurting his back. So he would have any given deadlift session, his back would go out.
Yep.
And so I think he did a lot of the FixFit drills afterwards. He messaged and said he was going to stop CrossFit. He's like, I just can't. My back is going to keep hurting. So we had to rebuild his deadlift from ground up. What you're talking about, we have to go and work this structure first, building his external obliques, his quads, the whole deal. Getting him he was holding a 135 bar, and he's deadlifted 515 before. Getting him to fire his VMOs and his glute max, right? The big part of his glute. And then, he was shaking.
Yep. At
right?
135.
135. And then, I think the last powerlifting little throwdown we ran, I think he only deadlifted 475. I think he took a shot at 500 or so.
Yeah, I remember that.
He didn't get the 500, but he was stoked because his back didn't hurt. His back wasn't sore.
Yep.
His back didn't hurt. Because there's two different things. People might they'll do a heavy deadlift or deadlift workout and their back is sore, lower back.
Yep.
That's not okay. That's not okay.
Yeah.
People need to know right now, if you do a deadlift workout, your lower back is sore, it is not okay. You're not bending up and down with your lower back to do a deadlift.
Well, that's why when I see non-athletes or non-CrossFitters, like the bodybuilder style workout, when they come in and they go, I don't deadlift though, don't scold me. And I'm like, what? Deadlift's my favorite. You should want to go back into that. And if your back's feeling better with all these other drills that we're doing, and your lats are firing now, and you're feeling strong, I'm like, that's cool. Your lats are firing in different planes, but I want it to fire on the deadlift, and your deadlift's going to be stronger than before, or at least you're going to come out of it and go, oh, whoa, now I don't feel it just there.
Yeah.
And the bar goes up a little easier. It's if you train in that realm for a bit, it'll be better for you.
He's a powerlifter? Or, a bodybuilder?
Yeah, just people that go to, LA
Gotcha.
Fitness and do, my leg day is deadlifting, and it's they're always nervous to tweak their back. Because, again,
that was the same thing with me. It's I don't like being nervous when I go into a workout. I want to be jacked up, motivated, and I don't want to get to that deadlift bar and oh shit, I hope it doesn't fuck me up today.
And if you load 500 or 400 plus on the bar and you're apprehensive about it, chances are you're going to tweak something because you're just going to overthink it. Nothing's trained right to be firing. It's that can go wrong. It will if you go into it like that. I don't know if everything's firing. I'm a little tweaked. And that's why I try to simplify it. It's you're not just firing your obliques on that pull and drop drill. But in your head you are. It's just neurologically feeding it.
That's
right?
Step one is you're just, those drills that we do are just drills. Again, drills don't mean anything unless you apply it. So no one even understands what external obliques are. Or, they usually go lats or abs or core. So then when people deadlift, I think the main issue why they get hurt is we've been taught to tighten up our back.
Yep.
That's the number one cue for deadlifts is tighten up your lats, tighten up your back.
Squeeze your back at the top of
the crazy thing is when you do that, you're actually putting all the weight into your lower back.
Yeah.
When you are you get down in a deadlift bar and you've been taught, and I've done this, so I know. So, and we've taught it this way, you grab the bar and then you tighten up your lats and back so your chest kind of comes up a little.
Yeah.
So you're arching, and so your back starts to extend, right? And your back can't hold that much weight. So all the force is going into some part of your spine where you're arching up. And that's where all of a sudden it goes from arch and a flat back, and then once that weight comes off, and then people go, that's where the rounding, the immediate cat pose or whatever, the cat back happens because you're trying to put all the weight into the spine. So that's that's the worst cue ever, but that's all we do. So what we're saying is if you target your external obliques, your upper back's actually rounded, but it's a stable position.
Yeah.
We're talking about a rounded thoracic back. so that the right muscles are on, but it doesn't change. We're not talking about the upper back starts bending and extending.
Yeah.
And then you should feel all the tension really in the hamstring and glutes and VMOs.
I've mentioned
it should
this,
not be in the back.
I've mentioned this before that I do a pretty rounded upper back dead, especially when they're linked and they have to be straight. I do it straight-legged. I feel it a lot in my hamstrings. And I've had people comment to me on the side like, dude, your upper back looks really rounded. I'm like, that's fine. Like, my low back's not rounded. I don't feel it there at all. I feel my hamstrings on. I feel my lats are on. And my external obliques are on, so I don't feel it anywhere in my back. And since I opened up that discussion, I've had a member come up to me and go, I do that too. I felt like it was wrong, and people are telling me it's wrong all the time. And I'm like, do you feel it in your back? And she was like, no. I'm like, then...
Here's the difference, right? Understanding the mechanics, and you can look at all the top people teaching the deadlift, right? It's your upper back can be rounded, not your lower back.
Yes.
Okay, there's two differences. When we're talking about rounded back, so you could, if you have the mobility to round that upper back as far as you can, while you still can keep your lat, your pec, your obliques on, then that's perfect. But if you're rounding that upper back for the sake of shorter range of motion, but you feel none of those major stabilizers on, then that's a problem.
Right.
That's it. But you're doing it with the right muscles on. You can feel.
And that could be just the way that I'm anatomically shaped. The fact that I wrestled and like that feels natural for me to be hunched over anyway. It's like, you don't know. All you know is you got to go by what you feel, right?
100%.
So if I do sumo, I feel my right SI joint, not pain, but like I could feel it the whole time. It's like, I know I should know more than a lot of people at the gym. If my right SI joint is hurting during a lift, I gotta freaking stop, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I can feel my glute, but then at the end of it, I'm like, my right SI joint is hurting. And it's like, probably because I know my right lat's not on at all when I'm in a sumo position because of the way that my body's shaped. I get real wide, and that's like, it's the shortest range of motion for me because I got a short torso. So it's like, I don't like that. I just stay away from it.
It's the goal too. It's like, why do you need a sumo? Why do you need a conventional? Like, you just, if you want to just lift heavy because it's fun, throw some weight around. You find the best variation that suits your body type, step one, right? If you wanted to go and dabble into sumo, then we'd have to figure out what imbalances are causing that SI joint pain.
Right.
But why go through that whole sport of weightlifting again, or powerlifting,
I'm not
when
be
you're
competing.
Just CrossFitting for fun?
Yeah, I'm not going to be competing anytime for powerlifting. But
going back to kind of like a little history, the journey, right? Again, I'm a smaller dude. I'm like weighing probably 165 now, and I was stuck, in my first years of CrossFitting, deadlifting like, I think my max was like 375 for a couple years, and that's trying to learn the mechanics of external rotation and trying to do accessory drills, work more lats and stuff like that. And GHD stuff, working the core. And that's as far as I got.
Mm-hmm.
And every single time I deadlifted heavy, we would switch grip.
Yeah, we should go over grip.
So it's, the grip, I would say that if you're not a power lifter, as in the sport of powerlifting,
mm-hmm.
you should not switch grip. You can argue all day, switch grip. There's people that do argue because I follow a lot of powerlifters that it's not dangerous and whatever. That's
why do people switch grip?
Switch grip, it's a stronger grip.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a workaround, right?
They think it creates more torque into the bar, right?
Well, it's just that since your hands are placed forward and back, the bar won't slip out of your hands as easily.
Oh, okay.
Right? Especially if you're doing high reps in a workout like
mm-hmm.
CrossFit. But what I realize is that I have a rotation. The hand that's faced under is usually your stronger hand that you deadlift with.
Yeah.
I use a lot more bicep and lat on that side. So I've been doing 8 years of that. And now that I have this huge imbalance that I'm trying to correct, I have like 8+ years of deadlifting heavy and in workouts and the whole deal. And now I'm paying the price. I'm not a competitive power lifter, right? Because when one hand's under, that side's going to take more of the force just because the nature of the position. So I'm using more bicep and lat, and that bar always shifts and rotates that way.
If the bar shifting and rotating that way, they'll cheat up with that bicep and like almost like a curl of it, very subtle, right?
Especially if they're trying to like inch out the last from above the knee to hip to lock out. You see them start to do the little like, they're trying to jack it up there, hop it up there.
And that's where true powerlifters in a competition will drop that side and usually tear that bicep.
Well, you can't help but to use the bicep because the hand's in a curl position, right? So that's why, if you want to deadlift for the rest of your life, it's much better to go double overhand. And
double overhand hook grip.
Double overhand hook grip is probably the strongest. And so even in our gym, right?
I said that from, all the years of hook gripping that I've been doing. It's been about 4 months. And my thumbnails kind of get little owies. So
when we switched and told everyone to stop switch gripping,
man, that was fun.
Everyone's PRs dropped like by 100 pounds.
That was fun. The debate in the gym for the longest time.
Because they're accustomed to it.
Yeah, switch grip. Oh, you guys did the 4th of July comp, and there was no switch grip allowed, and people were so mad.
People still argue, and it's for their own good. And
best.
Now, the proof is, what's the problem then? How come you could deadlift? For me, I was able to deadlift 405 or 425, right? By switch gripping. I did my powerlifting comp at switch grip, CrossFit comp switch grip. And then when I went overhand, like 315, it would, for a couple reps, it would slip out.
That was the best. You knew Mark programmed that fucking comp when it has to be double overhand, no sumo deadlift.
That's right. So we made a comp. We made a comp. No straps. No.
No straps. And I was like, oh, dude, thank God I'm in Mexico on 4th of July because I can't.
That's
no straps, bro. I'm fucking out.
We wanted people to train for it, And the thing is, the switch grip. Once we got people to ask that question, okay, how come I went from being able to deadlift 425 to I can't double overhand 355, let's say, then you have to answer that question. It's because your
Why can't I do it without straps?
The same thing. It's that what's limiting you? Everything works in chains and whatnot. So we're neglecting a big part of it. So you're overloading your body by hacking the system by doing a switch grip or using straps. Same discussion. Straps should not be used unless you're on a powerlifting program because you need to rest your grip and you have to deadlift multiple times a week.
Those guys rip in training and they suck it up the next week and go, I'm just going to use straps when I'm ripped to keep training. It's like when you're training for that kind of a sport, absolutely you can do whatever the hell you want.
But again, most people aren't training for powerlifting predominantly. So that's why if you're not, then no switch grip and no straps. Because you're working around the weaknesses. So it took us a little bit, maybe 3 months or so, but the weight, once we started doing a lot more axle deadlifts and just working double overhand, I remember it vividly. I was able to, it was hard for us to go 315 linking for reps. And I trained for, I don't know, maybe half a year. And then one of those Saturday throwdowns, it just was for max rep, and it was just adding more weight for fun.
Yeah.
Sets of 5 or something. And then I was lifting with Harry, and then Andrea gave me shit because Harry did 3 reps at 405. And then Andrea, my wife, she's always yelling at me oh, you're going to let Harry do that? And then so I remember it vividly, and I haven't deadlifted in a program, so I grabbed the bar, no belt. We should talk about that too.
Oh, shit, yeah.
No straps, no switch grip.
Yeah, no.
And I deadlifted 405 for 6.
Yeah.
In a row, linked.
But you were fat as fuck.
I don't know if I was that big. Even my fat as fuck is 175.
I know.
I'm not a big dude. But the grip is something that people don't train if you deadlifted heavy enough before as a fitness, for fitness.
I used to use
the grip always gives out first.
I use a really weak excuse and say I work with my hands for a living. I'm just gonna whatever. But I can say literally when I started training more hook grip that my grip actually feels better. My wrists don't hurt at work anymore. Because it's actually developing a lot of probably just muscle inside the hand. Because it's if I never work my grip in anything else, right, and I'm just working with my hands going all right, whatever, I want to protect this for longevity, but it's once I started hook gripping, I'd feel the next day, my hands actually felt better after a full day of treating patients. Actually, I was
because I think it forces you, because when you're doing a deadlift with double overhand and hook grip, it's not just grip strength. You can't just isolate a muscle being forearm flexors. Now you have to you get to engage your pec and your teres and your lats better because you're
with
gripping
the grip at the same time.
Because if you're using the strap,
Yep.
the weight's hinging off of a joint. Like
Right.
your shoulders are being pulled forward, not
Yep.
active in a position like you talked about.
Yeah.
Because if you have straps on and you get to lift more weight or more reps, that's great, but you're not training any of the upper body muscles that you needed to in the
Right.
first place.
So if you're at LA Fitness, stop being a bitch. No more straps. No more switch grips.
Well, that's what we did for our gym. We said no. And even belts. That was a big deal.
Now let's go into belts.
Belts, I've fucked my back up so many times in heavy lifts, back squat and deadlifts. And the belts don't do shit. How and I can say this because I've had my back go out many times in the last 10 years of lifting, CrossFit, the whole deal. I was back squatting 350, 365, and then, it was a second attempt or something, right? I think second attempt, and then at the bottom, my back tweaks. When you get that sharp pain, the bar falls, and you got no more energy. How is this belt made of Velcro, some leather, gonna hold your core together? And same with deadlifts. My back's gone out. Doesn't even have to be heavy. It could be 400 pounds or something.
Again, separating sport from fitness. In the sport of powerlifting, yeah, you're going for 100% rep max at a competition or even in training for a competition, and you have a belt on, it will help some protection. But those powerlifters are breathing into the belt anyway, which means they're firing their external obliques into the belt.
Yep.
Right? So when there's that compression, because at the top of that pull, there's going to be a compressive force into your lumbar spine, right? And that doesn't mean the belt's holding your lumbar spine in place. Your external obliques are. And the belt is just that added compressive force to it to kind of supplement it, almost like compression. So that is a good idea for a power lifter, but if you're in the gym training for reps especially...
I think that's even more detrimental, like you said, because of the technique or the intent of wearing that belt. And I think I've learned that when you wear a weightlifting belt, and we've coached it this way, you should be able to fit your hand inside. So it's not like a corset.
That's exactly
because it's a tactile cue where I'm pushing and flexing all my core muscles like you talked about against the belt.
So good powerlift coaching, they would tell them that you should have a hand inside. Because some guys are strapping that belt so damn tight.
Like a corset or something.
Like a corset and being there's my obliques. It's like, no, you have to loosen it up.
That's probably going to make you arch your lower back harder because you're tightening it up. It's
Exactly.
So again, if you're doing it for reps and you're pushing so hard against the belt, it's harder to maintain that because they're Steffi Cohen just had a post about that. She's like, you should breathe into your diaphragm, this and that. I think it's more than just breathing. It's more about firing the muscles. But that's for one rep. You can't hold your breath, a diaphragmic breath, and flex your obliques for multiple reps in a CrossFit workout.
Right.
Or if you're doing sets for bodybuilding, so the belt is going to give you a false sense of security.
Yep.
So that's why the belt has no place. And so when I pulled. Fast forward to the best, deadlift that I got was 455, and without training the deadlift, then I had, again, no shoes, no switch grip, no belt, 455, and I'm, 165. Those numbers aren't going to qualify me for, a national meet, but same thing. I don't give a fuck. My back didn't hurt, and I didn't need all those other things. I think all those other things, like straps and belts, will just, you're trying to, hack your foundation.
Yep.
You're working around, if you tighten up that belt, you're working around a weak ass core. You're working on weak ass pecs and lats and forearm grip. And
then talk about shoes too. Why do powerlifters wear, the powerlift competitors, why do they wear wrestling shoes or Converse style flat shoes? And why do we go barefoot? I mean, and they would love to go barefoot, a lot of them actually. They train in their socks.
They have deadlift socks?
They have deadlift shoes now that are basically like a sock material, but I think certain competitions, they won't let you wear those. So a lot of guys I've seen guys wear wrestling shoes, which is smart, because it's still a shoe, but there's not a lot of give in them. Like Vans, Converse, flat, high tops, like Jordans, kind of thing. They wear Air Force Ones. They'll wear those because why? Talk about that gripping into the ground, big first toe joint to help drive up.
Now we've been teaching the deadlift with the right mechanics and using all the muscles in the body in that specific chain. And the first thing that we're getting from people, feedback, is that my arches are cramping.
Yeah.
And it's the same analogy as why are you using straps.
We love hearing that.
Use the straps to work around your weak ass grip, or our weak ass grip. And then if you wear shoes, like even like for CrossFitters that are kind of hybrids, like nanos or metcons,
yeah,
there's still give because you have to run and jump rope and stuff. So that little bit of give, and that's that's gonna affect how you activate the muscles in the lower leg. So
because it starts from the ground, right?
You grip so hard with that big toe joint for us, so that you can start to push against it to tighten everything up, and that's why people's arches start to cramp.
Yeah,
and that's a good sign because you're actually starting to. You're not losing tension when you're in a shoe that's kind of soft. Then you're pushing down, but you're sinking inward.
Yep. Most
people are probably sinking outward because
they mostly sink outside
because they're arching.
And in my world, how many people ask about pillows and shoes and orthotics, and they always ask me like, I stand on laminate all day long at work, so I'll say yes, I'll wear like an Ultra Boost or some kind of real thick cushioned shoe because I'm standing on laminate all day. But if I'm in the gym training a deadlift or a squat, you're going flat shoe. Yep. Because you want to, like you said, get in that cramp in that arch. That's going to give you a stronger foot and not give you plantar fasciitis in the long run when you're running. And because no one ever trains their arch like that.
People talk about like collapsed ankles, dorsiflexion, all that shit.
Yeah.
Ankle mobility. Fuck that shit.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, your ankle drops down because your arch is collapsed, right?
And that's how you can roll an ankle.
And it's like, okay, now you're deadlifting with your ankles dropped in, your arches are fully collapsed, right? I don't care what shoe you have or orthotics to hold it up. It's like you can't even activate the muscles in the arches of your feet to straighten out your ankle, to activate the right part of the calf and the VMO and ham. It's like one big chain.
Yeah.
So if it's broken from the ankle, then yes, your ankle all of a sudden is tight as fuck because you're using like the wrong part of your lower leg, the muscles on the outside of your shin or something. Yeah. And now all of a sudden your ankle's fused and it can't go up or down, dorsiflexion or whatever, and then people blame your squat or deadlift on ankle mobility.
Or what, like put on Olympic lifters then if you're going to do a high bar back squat.
It fucking drives me crazy. If you do this, I apologize. They're just the better route. If you're doing fucking like, you put those 5-pound plates, metal plates, underneath your shoes when you squat or deadlift or do shit, stop that shit.
No, people don't even know why they do it. They just saw it on Instagram.
Stop that shit.
I saw someone else doing it and I'm going to do it. It's like, that's so terrible.
You're working around, again, the issues that you have. And wouldn't, for longevity, that's why we're here. If you like to deadlift, this is the point. Fix the shit that's going to lower your risk of injury.
Anybody listening that doesn't know what that means, take your shoes off, go with socks on if you want, onto something hard like a laminate or tile, and just do an air squat and see where your feet are at. And if your ankles start rolling to the outside
or collapsing in
on the way back down, like you are losing a lot of tension from the ground, which can help activate, like Mark was saying, that big toe joint. If you got down into a deadlift position and you want your inside knee to activate, we've had people just drive your big toe down as hard as you can and try to flex your glute and try to flex that inside knee.
Yeah, VMO.
And nobody can do it. And then you can find the weakness. Like, oh, my right side's easy. My left side, nothing's happening here on my left VMO.
That's
like,
a good point in terms of assessments. You come to me and your back hurts from deadlifts.
Yep.
I'll like get down to your starting position, right? I'll probably have to make an adjustment where their hips are already too high.
Yep.
Because they don't have VMO.
So sink your hips back a little.
And then just stay holding the bar. Don't lift it yet, but flex that inside quad, your obliques, your glutes, and they can't do that. That's what causes, people say these terms all the time, they stripper butt, so your butt shoots up. Because you have no inside quad muscle to keep you in that, upright position.
Right.
So then it's like you start to deadlift a certain way and put the weight into your lower back. So like you talked about, can you feel muscles in your arches turn on? And can you feel that inside VMO turn on? Just at the start of the deadlift.
That's just so interesting because then you could really start to feel it. So then when I'm training, if I'm training deadlifts and I know my left VMO is a weakness, that tells me my left glute is weak because it's hard to activate it. So it's like, oh, well, that makes sense while I'm running or if I'm doing double under jump rope.
Yeah, for sure.
My left calf is doing everything because I have nothing coming from my quad, I have nothing coming from my glute, right? So it's like the deadlift can also help you isolate these muscles to go, holy crap, this left VMO is super weak compared to my right side.
Yep.
No wonder that if I did a 1 rep max, my left side of my lower back hurts, No wonder that on the right side, my SI joint starts hurting when I do multiple reps or when I do a sumo, because that right glute's overworking and it's slamming my SI joint over and over and over. And if it's stuck, it eventually gets inflamed. But some people, that would just be SI joint like discomfort, which is fine. Like people call that hip pain all the time. So when I come into my office and go, my right hip hurts from burpees or whatever, or burpees or deadlifts, and I say point to your hip, you should point to the side of your hip where the hip ball and socket is. They point right to their SI joint.
Yeah.
And I tell them, like, that glute's overworking. The left glute's not doing a damn thing, so it goes up the chain to the erectors, and the erectors in the left side of the low back, like the QL, are real good at pulling up that weight, and that's usually where the spasm's at.
That's what's kind of cool, because like what you're talking about, just like an assessment, but figuring out why.
Yeah.
Like
through movement.
Through movement, because again, it's function versus action, and I've looked at the function of the VMOs, or this and that, or the action, I guess, right? But it's like if you come to me and then I assess you for your deadlift, right, and I get you to go down there and see if a glute or VMO is working or not, I can tell you all your deadlift tweaks. I know which side it's going to tweak. Yeah. Without you telling me, because it's the way the
imbalance of the muscles. Yeah.
You take a video of yourself deadlifting, like behind back view, straight back, and then moderate deadlift. Doesn't even have to be that heavy, but you'll see that your hip shifts to one side. I guarantee it. And then that's where you'd start to question, well, what's causing? Like for you have no left VMO, left glute. You use probably all hamstring. Yeah. And all of the weight shoots to your right glute. And people don't even address that like that's an issue, because you don't feel anything until that one heavy rep or that one big set under fatigue state, and then you tweaked your back and it's like, oh my god, deadlifts happen. It's like, it's not a
This is where it's interesting in that my erectors are on, my glutes are trying to work because I'm working on them, I'm trying to fire my VMOs, and I don't have injury from it. I can just feel it kind of creeping up, right? So the most common injury I see is an SI sprain, and I tell my patients this sometimes, because I was like, I've seen enough SI sprains and assessed so many of them. We have a test where they lay flat on their back and just do a straight leg raise. And that first 0 to 15 degrees, if they start going, there it is, it's right there in my low back on the right side, I'm like, it's an SI sprain. You went to go pull up that right leg against gravity, your hip flexor's spasming, tugging on your lumbar spine, and then your SI is so sprained that just lifting it up in that first 15 degrees, they're like, my low back. And they point right there. It's SI sprain all day, right? So I tell them, like, whether it's repetition, that SI was just getting worn out, that to me feels like a grade 1, what I'm talking about. Like, that SI is irritated. Let's get it mobile again, get the inflammation down. I could get back to working out. Grade 2 is I went for a 1 rep max, and that SI sheared because I lost that oblique mobility, right? Now my lumbar spine, like you said, takes that hyperextension. My hips are sitting back, maybe sitting a little high, and you sheared right at that L5S1 level, and you just sprained your SI joint. And it's like, that is bad. People sometimes feel a pop with that, sometimes they don't, but they know it's bad, and they drop the bar, and they come see me and go, what is this? So I call that like a grade 2. There's no research on this stuff. This is just me in my head.
And what you've seen, your examples.
And what I've seen from,
Which is more important, because it's like, it's actually like real life people, right?
Right.
Some sort of.
And I've told them too, I was like, I've seen what I've called like a grade 3 where there's actual sciatica and there's actual neurological pain, and it could be coming from their L5S1 disc, but all the testing, all the motion, all the history that I just talked about is just compiled on, and it's like, it's still an SI sprain. And I treat it like an SI sprain, and it goes away really fast. We can adjust the SI joint when you can't adjust a hot disc. You can, but it would hurt like hell. But I've adjusted a hot SI joint that's like inflamed, and people have gotten relief. Yeah. I've treated their sacrum, if that sacrum is just rotated and pressing on their SI joint, we treat that. And people generally just feel better. But I've seen so many SI sprains, and I always think it's to bad deadlift mechanics, and I think it's always a hinge problem.
Well, which is currently, right? You tweak your back on a deadlift, you go somewhere to get relief. You go to chiro, massage, you rest.
Mostly chiro first because they'll go.
Because it's a low back thing.
Low back means chiro.
Because they're scared. It's like
back doctor. Go see the back doctor first, right? Yeah.
And that's so. Then the pain goes away. They've rested. They've got their treatments. They go back, and nothing was ever fixed.
I try to get them to turn on their glute to stabilize their hip. Right. I give them stabilization drills. Here's a little kickback to fire your glute. Here's an oblique opener to fire your oblique. Great. But are they applying that to the mechanics like you're about to talk about? Probably not, because they blame the deadlift or they just don't go back to it. They're scared to go back to it.
I want everyone to understand what's going on in their body when they're lifting. For example, this deadlift, I want you to feel like what you articulated is when you're deadlifting for you, which muscles are supposed to be on. Remember, again, you should not feel it in your lower back. It's like when you're deadlifting, you felt the weight shift from like the inside quad, or if that turns off, it went to your like outside glute or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's important because you're still doing an athletic movement, you're still adding weight, pushing the envelope, so you might get a tweak or here and there. But at least I want you to understand why it happened. Right? So you're like, oh, my lower back tweaked. Oh, but I felt the shift happen. I felt my inside quad completely turn off.
Yep.
I felt no hamstrings or something. So that's important. That's a way better option, and it's less scary than like, I tweaked my back, can I ever walk again? And so many people probably have quit lifting.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
quit CrossFit, quit powerlifting, quit everything because they're afraid to like, deadlifts are dangerous, man. Deadlifts are dangerous. It's like,
I've seen those grade 2, 3 side sprints I'm talking about, and they literally seen someone come in with their hip flexors were spasming so bad, and they were bent over at their waist 90 degrees, and they couldn't stand up straight.
We've all been there. You've deadlifted enough. You've fucked your back up really bad.
I haven't gone to that extent, but
I mean, I guess.
I mean, like,
it's been years for me of like.
When you get debilitated like that, it is very hard to go back to it, and they're very apprehensive, but they don't know why.
And the thing is, even if they get the balls to go back again, what's the protocol? Start with the empty bar. Yeah. Ooh, that felt okay. Try these other accessory drills, bent over rows, because I heard it helps. It's like that didn't change what happened in the first place.
It'd be a better option is cortisone shot in the SI joint. Rest.
Fuse your back.
Fuse the lumbar spine with some discectomies, and then you should go to your PT and learn how to stretch your QL and maybe foam roll.
That's probably what's as weird as that, as funny as that is. It's like that's what's.
If anybody's listening and goes, "Holy crap, I did all that," and you are confused, Mark and I's approach is a bit different, isn't it? So,
I think there's a difference. Is like the injury rate in our gym has gone down significantly.
Totally. We talked about that on
Deadlifts, yes. Yeah. Go back to listen to that one. That's a fun
the evolution
podcast.
of CrossFit Sun, and we talk about the
deadlift. The biggest change is the injury rate in deadlifts because we do it for reps. We're not doing 1 rep maxes often, so that's even more dangerous for CrossFitters.
Yeah.
Because then you're fatigued. It's not like you just do deadlifts. You just came back from a long run and your hip flexors are blown up or whatever. But we have a lot less injury rates from deadlifts, and then also the severity. It's like people will get. It's not that like you talked before. Sometimes people would deadlift and all we did was just keep adding weight, right? Oh, high five, and using technique cues like, oh, your knees back a little bit more, your knees out, your shoulders back and down harder, right? But then that gives you that false sense of getting stronger, but your foundation shit, and then you get this severe injuries, like they're laying on the ground like crying. Debilitated. We have not seen that, and I don't plan to see that unless they're not listening to the protocol or following the program, because the thing is, we would rather, what I think we're going to start to see more of, and what I experience is that you're going to start seeing a little bit more like muscle tweak, strain,
muscle strain, muscle spasm, and I want people to we have to talk people off the ledge sometimes that we're so bought into our oblique movement and glute movement, and they work really diligently, really hard, and then they get a knee pain or they get a muscle spasm, and they're like, shit, like it didn't work. Like, oh, I went too heavy today. And it's like, you had outside knee pain, that's referred from your glute. You had muscle strain in your lumbar spine, like your erector's still working on a deadlift. It's okay.
As a fitnesser, that's a fucking word. Look it up. As a fitnesser, the way we're coaching and we've evolved it, every movement we do is, we call it a control test. So when we're working on these things and you're, like Harry doing 135 like stiff-legged, and he's shaking, right? And if something like were to happen, his left, lumbar, lower back tightens up, it's like perfect.
Yeah.
It's not, don't be afraid of it. I'd rather you have a minor muscle spasm and you have some outside knee pain because you squatted this way under a controlled test versus not thinking about it, not knowing shit, and then you go for a 400-pound deadlift, 500-pound deadlift, and then you blow your back out.
Dude, if you want to nerd
that's the severity of it. Now it's like, oh my gosh, I feel a little bit of discomfort. Perfect. Let's fix what's causing it before something actually happens.
That's if you want to nerd out even more, Dr. Stu McGill, BackFit Pro, his book's called The Gift of Injury, because you should see the injury as a blessing of like, hey, I could come back from this, but in the process of coming back from it, freaking identify why it happened in the first place and where is it coming from and work on it. Don't think of it as, I'm out, I'm never doing that again, and like beat yourself up. It's like, see the little minor spasms, little tweaks. Like we talk about, I saw you for a neck spasm last week. Yep. Are we saying all of FixFit didn't work for you because you couldn't snatch one day?
Controlled test.
No, yeah.
I have a CrossFit comp coming up, and it's a team partner workout. I have to do the snatch. My buddy DJ has to do clean jerk, so I wanted to test it. So now I know what to work on leading up to it, because I was only snatching 155, and then I had a spasm in my upper trap.
Yep.
I don't want to wait, and I didn't fucking do these controlled tests, and then I try to snatch 205 or whatever, and then I really fuck my neck up.
Yep.
Because it's better to
robot neck last week, and
it's better to have that test at 155 or 130, whatever it is,
right.
And to feel. I always tell people in my FixFit classes, and this is my tagline for it: is pain is good.
Mm-hmm.
Pain is your best coach for FixFit, because when I have people running and they're like, "Oh, my knee hurts," and then I was like, "Okay, you got to keep the knee bent more. Don't hyperextend it. Flex your glutes." They come back and they're like, "Pain's gone."
Yeah.
So it's like, good. Now you know the difference. So when that person goes for a run, they feel that pain. They know okay, something is wrong.
Pain is neurological sometimes, right? So if it's signaling to you stop, then you should probably stop. And if it's
but don't just stop and then hope it goes away.
Exactly.
What the fuck is that?
It's telling you were moving wrong. So fix your movement.
That's why I have a big problem with, I don't know the science behind it. Some people say it's like got long-term effects or not, is cortisone shots. Mm-hmm. When someone comes to me and they get a cortisone shot before that, I can't work with them because they have numbed all their pain signals. Because when I assess someone and I'm seeing you do movement, and then I usually say, hey, does that cause you pain, or where do you feel it? What if you feel nothing, I'm not getting any readings.
Yeah.
So I would assume that if you're trying to get a cortisone shot to numb it, you're not fixing shit, because now you can move your shoulder, and I've seen cases in my gym where their injury gets worse down the line because of a cortisone shot. Because now that you can start doing workouts again,
right,
you're numbing certain issues.
The goal of the cortisone shot should just be to take down your inflammation, and once the pain's gone, it's not returned to play, it's returned to
rehab.
Like just kind of like your spasm you just had. You said, now I know where the imbalance is at, and now I'm going to go work on it. Back to the drawing board, basically. Yep. But people don't always have that mindset. They beat themselves up over it all the time and go, everything I just did didn't work. And it's like, I'm going to move on and go see what someone else has to say about it. See what my PT or my MD has to say about it. And it's like, you shouldn't. You should really, the way that we try to educate everybody is like, you should be able to identify it yourself. And if you can't, maybe this isn't the right fit for you, but I mean, ours is so simple and so biomechanical to where if you don't feel it in that muscle, you're not using it. If you feel it overused in a neck muscle, that's a small muscle. It shouldn't be weight bearing a barbell over your head, right? Your upper trap shouldn't be over. We've gone over that in the shoulder pain episode. So it's like the gift of injury. Like you said, it's pain is a signal. It's not telling you to stop forever and quit. It's telling you to like slow down a little bit.
Don't
get
mask
some help.
The pain.
Don't mask it with some pain meds and rest and even therapy. You shouldn't be getting like a massage like twice a week or once a week and just be like, oh man, that's just my recovery and I'm just gonna keep going ham all the time. Because if you are, again, you're masking it. That's like taking ibuprofen all the time. Getting all the pain signals to go away with conservative care, but you never stop and actually just feel the pain.
Yeah.
How are you gonna know where it's coming from?
You can't.
You know? Let's wrap this up with your 500-pound dead journey.
So I picked that because I wanted to kind of just test. I always like testing.
Sure.
And I got to the point where I deadlifted 455. This is about 10 months ago before I had my baby.
So fat.
I'm not fat.
That picture of you at the top of the dead, I was like, who's that guy? Is that hairy?
I think I was only. I mean, I've done Go Mad, gallon of milk a day, and all these. I've tested a bunch of nutrition stuff,
dude.
And I think I got to like 190 maybe.
You're so weird sometimes.
I'm super weird.
So weird.
But again, this was.
So what's your body weight goal going to be for the 500-pound dead? Because that matters a lot.
It does. But when I got to 455, I think I was 178 or something.
Yeah. So fat.
And I was just doing CrossFit and FixFit, so I wasn't on a powerlifting program.
Right.
Again, no straps, no belt, no switch grip. And so now my goal in life has always been to deadlift 500 because it's just fun.
Yeah.
To have something so silly like that.
Some arbitrary number to work towards.
And I think if I actually focused on a regimen, because before I just did CrossFit. So now I'm going to focus on.
So are you going to do a powerlifting style program?
Yeah, so I've been documenting my training. So I'm doing this specifically for, like, I'm creating a powerlifting program and going through it myself. A FixFit style
powerlifting program, yeah.
And with the consistency of doing these movement patterns more often, I don't see why I can't get to 500.
No, yeah. You're en route for that before.
And I'm much lighter now. I lost like. We did DEXA scans. We do them at our gym, and I lost something like 10 pounds of muscle in the last 9 months.
I was talking about that last week.
10 pounds.
I was talking about that last week with Leslie, and I was saying we saw a picture of you, and we were saying how skinny you looked.
Oh, I'm the type of body type. I'll lose weight,
right?
And usually muscle mass.
But in society, people go, "Oh, must be fucking nice." But
no, I lost my gains.
I know.
If you're listening this far because you like to deadlift, you can
fat people though don't feel any sympathy for you because in society, fat is not beautiful.
The DEXA
I don't care what.
Proved that my fat stayed the same. I lost 10 pounds of muscle.
I don't care what. all these censors are saying now. Fat is not beautiful. No one wants to be fat, right? So but on your end, I had a friend in the past that he was the same way. He got sick once and he had like 3 months off, and he was like, everyone's like, "You looking skinny," and like he lost a bunch of muscle mass.
Yep.
And he was like, "Oh gosh, I lost so much weight, like eating too bad and like not lifting." And then everybody was like, "Oh, shut up," and he was like, "Hey, you guys don't understand. Like, for a skinny person, he's like, I work hard to not be scrawny.
Yeah.
He's like, I work hard to look a little full, you know? And he's like, I don't want to be scrawny." And I was like, that's a good point to hear. A scrawny person could be bullied the same way a fat person could be bullied. So
you get that shit all the time because you're naturally leaner. But that's like the reason why I wanted to do the 500-pound deadlift is because that getting there, I'm gonna have to have the least amount of imbalances possible.
Yeah.
If I don't, come out of it alive, I guess,
Can I be in charge of your nutrition? Can I help you carbo load? I'm really good at getting you fat if you want.
I'm on more of that CrossFit football diet now. We're just eating a lot more good foods, including rice and potatoes as well.
You're gonna put rice and potatoes back in. Mm-hmm. What about breads? Mm-hmm. In-N-Out Burger?
Nope.
Habit?
I'm doing this like budget friendly too.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not going out to eat either. So if I get to the 500-pound deadlift, I'm going to have to work on things that I've always neglected because things are hard. Like, so people use straps or belts or whatever. So you kind of have to take that bodybuilding mentality, as in, like, if you look at the premise or idea of bodybuilding, you're trying to fill out the muscles you don't have.
Yeah.
I've always had, like, weak arms. My pecs aren't really that developed or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm going to need all those things to match my hamstrings and
you're gonna need the gut. Every powerlifter's got a little bit. They're pretty big, dude. So if you want,
I'll be a lean little guy trying to pull 500.
I think I'm gonna start with your nutrition with IPAs. We're gonna just get you on an IPA diet. A lot of cheese, pizza, In-N-Out at least once a week.
I'm gonna have the
cheesecake, huh?
Why don't we add in the hot wings challenge?
Oh shit! Yeah, we've had a couple of requests. If you've gotten this far, I hope you have on this podcast. Hot Ones episode.
Hot Ones, I didn't even know what that was, but essentially this YouTube channel has all these famous people on. They go down a row of different hot sauces.
You sound so old right now. This show has been around for like 3 years. It's
I've never heard
biggest
of it.
YouTube show.
No, you're like Hot Ones. I even gave the phone to Andrea's like, do you know this reference?
You guys are so
She's
old.
like, nope. I was like, okay, let me ask him.
This has been around a long time, dude.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, they want us to do a Fortnite challenge. Have you heard of this game, Fortnite? They want us to do these dances.
I am old. I don't do the normal news stuff.
No, I know. I'm just kidding. But yeah, Hot Ones, 10 wings, go down the line, you get grilled with questions. We'll need a guest for that, or we could do...
I can ask you the questions.
I could eat the wings and you could ask me the bullshit questions, but they have to be like... You have to watch some episodes, do some research, watch a few episodes and get a comedian on, watch a famous person, watch a rapper, and like watch the questions that the guy asks. Sean Evans is legit. Yeah. And he asks like deep diving questions on them when they get to the hot shit. And they have to answer them truthfully, and they say that you get like this buzzing, like you feel kind of drunk feeling, like you can't think straight when you're under all that distress. And I was like, man, I just get nervous just thinking about it. I don't know if I can do it.
Thinking about it.
Yeah.
I don't like hot stuff that much.
Let's see your 500-pound dead after some hot wings. Ooh.
I don't know when I'll get there, but I think with the... Like, I only pulled 375 like a couple weeks ago just to test where I'm at, which is sad as fuck, losing that much in 9 months. And I think even just doing a week of the programming, I'm like, if I went to deadlift today, I feel pretty confident I could probably hit 405 already. But I'm not gonna. But
it's April 22nd, noted, clocked. Mark said 375 was about the starting weight. He could probably do 405 today. We'll have to check back on this in a few months for the 500.
Yeah, you can follow. I think. Well, I don't know. Like, yeah, I'm posting my stuff.
You better document the shit out of this.
I am. I have.
Mark's son, FixFit, at Instagram. I'm at Cook Cairo. Dude, are you gonna go work out right now? Let's go hit some deads.
Good.
It's in the workout today.
I'm not opposed to it.
All right, we're gonna go get workout, and then we're gonna go get fat. I'll show you how to get fat. Let's go deadlift, and then we'll go get in and out. I'll show you. That's what I do, dude. I'll get some straps. We'll do some deadlifts with straps, switch script, and then we'll get some in and out, double doubles. I hope Teach is coaching. He loves when I do that. Or it's Leslie.
I don't know. Oh, today is Leslie.
Okay. She'll let me do whatever.
Should we make some videos about like hinge and deadlift and all that?
Absolutely. Yeah, and if you guys want to see anything else that we're talking about, let us know. We'll make a video for it.
Yeah, we'll just wait till people that actually listen this far in, so we'll just send it to you.
We have the stats. We know who's fucking lying. So,
but yeah, no, that's the goal. We talked about all this, how to prevent it, how to train, how to integrate it, but let us know if we want the videos for it.
Dope. All right, we're out. We'll be back next week, hopefully with a guest, a surprise guest.
Talk about recovery.
I don't want to shout out. I don't want to put out names on blast, but we have someone